Today we're reviewing Barbie. Oppenheimer. I know I'm usually doing these reviews by myself, but I went and seen this with a friend who I do all these videos with, and it's Jordan. So, Jordan, what are your thoughts overall on the movie?
I was really impressed with the movie. It was way better than it was way better than I thought it was, and I say that for one reason, because I was so hyped into going to see this movie. Yeah. I thought it was gonna be overhyped. I was worried about that, and it was gonna kind of flop or be like mid or whatever. That's what the kids say. And I was very surprised, pleasantly, that it held up. It was one of the best movies of the year. So we haven't seen Barbie. We're going to see that today. It's one of the best movies of the year so far, for sure. Best movie I've seen in a while, mainly because it wasn't Marvel. That's right. I'm looking at you. But no, it held up. It was great all around. I liked the cinematography. The cast was amazing. The actors did great. There were some performances that I haven't seen people act in a while, and they did really good. We'll still talk about them in a second. And overall, the sound design, the metaphors, I like everything that was practical. Speaking of the designs and everything, it was really great. What about you? What was your overall thoughts?
Same. This was one of the movies that I've been looking forward to all year. There's a couple of them that is in there, but this is like one of the main ones, because I heard that they were doing everything practical. Nothing in this was digital. I mean, there might have been like a couple of like little digital effects in here, but for the main part, like all the explosions from like the small ones to the big one was all practical, which is awesome, because they use this new camera this old camera, but they brought it back, that was strictly used for filming atomic bombs.
Yes.
And that was really cool. The acting, like you said, was amazing. The cast in this was vast. Like, it had everybody from Josh Peck to
Gary
Oldman, and everybody in between that. It was amazing. Nobody gave a terrible performance at all. Because in most movies, you'll go and see there's 1 to 2 that you're like, okay, that's not really, This one, everybody killed it in every single role that they were in. And like you said, the sound design, whenever the bombs went off, was incredible. I go ahead and say this right now, go watch this in IMAX, because it just makes the sound so much better. Whenever that bomb hit, I jumped every time that an explosion went off.
Yeah, and so obviously I'm gonna already have included spoilers at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Like, spoilers, obviously.
It's a true story.
It's fucking history. Read a book, damn it.
Read a book. It's based off a book.
But yeah, there was a couple scenes that fucking gave me jump scares because of the one scene that in particular was he's giving a speech and he's having like all these convictions about everything, and he's like seeing people that he might have killed with his bomb, and it goes quiet, and it's quiet for a while, and all of a sudden just fucking snap back in, and it's stupid loud. I jumped a little, and when they dropped the bomb and the fucking white light, that shit was bright, by the way, in the movies.
Yes.
I was waiting for the bomb. I was waiting because obviously light travels faster than sound, so like you see the light and you're waiting for the fucking force to come, and I was waiting for it. I was on edge the whole time. Like, I know it's gonna hit. They're gonna jump scare me. But like you said, the cast though was phenomenal. I want to mention Josh Hartnett was one of my favorite performances on there, mainly because I know he's been in a few movies the past like few years, but he took like a good 10 to 15 year break.
He retired for a little bit.
And he did really well. I liked his character. Coming from an engineering background, I really like seeing all the scientists, the physicists, and the engineers studying all those courses and everything. You hear those names all the time, so that was kind of neat for nerds to see that. Also, I'm big into history and politics, so like it was cool. The whole premise of the movie is about him and taking place during the Cold War, and the Red Scare and communism and all that. That was really cool. Got to see how corrupt the FBI is.
Man, what?
Which,
Everybody.
yeah. J. Edgar Hoover was fucking. That was a wild dude.
Allegedly.
Him and his gay lover, allegedly.
Oh man, so that's one thing. Like, I'm glad you brought up like the fact that it was correlated with like your engineering background. Because whenever we got out of the movie, you were like, oh yeah, I read about and studied some of these people and some of their works and everything. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Because honestly, the only thing that I knew about the Manhattan Project was that it was called the Manhattan Project and that we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was the only thing that I really knew. I mean, yeah, we learned about it in school before they started changing the history books.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, to fit with the social norm now. But yeah, like I kind of knew about it a little bit, but not much. And apparently, like it's based off of American Prometheus, which you already did a video on the channel a couple weeks back, and that was really good and very informative about it. And if you hadn't seen that, go watch it. But what I like about that, and what I like about Christopher Nolan's writing, is that every movie that he does, people have conversations after the fact of every movie that he does. Even the Batman movies, everybody was talking about what's going to happen after this, theorizing and all that other stuff. But everything from like Inception and the spinning top to pretty much the last scene of this movie where he's talking to Einstein, and he was pretty much like, hey, do you remember when we thought that we were going to kill the world with this bomb?
The probability
of it being almost zero. And he was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I think we did that. And then the movie ends.
It's very, very deep.
It's very deep, and it's awesome and like after the fact that me and you talked about it for a good minute, and then we kind of had to stop so that we could actually do the video. But one thing I found out after we had left the movie is that it had a post-credit scene.
Did it really?
It did.
Damn it. We'll watch it, and we'll watch it.
I watched it.
Oh, really? So explain it.
So it's just Einstein sitting in his house writing, and then he kind of like sits up, and it focuses on the paper, and it just says E equals.
That's it.
And then it ends.
Damn you, Marvel! Why you gotta have people have post-credit scenes?
And then I think it says,
I just blame Marvel for everything.
And then I think it says Einstein will be back. I think it does. Like it was. I watched it on TikTok, just a little clip. But I mean, if that is true, and you know what I mean, if Christopher Nolan is thinking, which I mean, I don't think he will, but he wrote the movie.
No, I don't see much of a movie there though.
No, I mean, he could write a movie about Einstein, and I would actually probably go and watch that.
I would too, but
because
I don't think it'd be. I can't think of like something as entertaining.
It would be more of like a historical. I'm trying to think of a movie. Kind of like what's that movie that Benedict Cumberbatch did where he was breaking the codes and he was secretly gay?
Yeah, he was playing Turing. I hope I pronounced it right. But it was I can't think of the name of the movie. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or it'd be like them playing Hawking.
Yeah. It'd be like a Hawking movie, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I could see that, and like those movies are great, but I mean, if they continued on with that, that'd be pretty cool too. But I don't see Christopher Nolan really doing another sequel to anything because he's already come out and said that he's not working anymore until the strike's over with. He's not writing. Well, I mean, he might still write, but he's not making anything until the strike's over with.
Well, it'd be hard to get A-list actors right now. So
Exactly.
And it seems like he likes working with the same people. So
Yeah. Apparently, Robert Downey Jr. is like one of his favorite actors now. He said that. Speaking of Marvel, he said that the best casting choice that Marvel ever made was casting Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, so speaking of that,
Yeah.
I saw a clip the other day from Robert Downey Jr. that said that he didn't count Marvel as acting.
Oh, really?
or anything like that. He didn't think of it as art. He thought of it as just content because there's no meaning. It's just mindless entertainment, like I've always said. And but he was worried. He was actually worried that being in Marvel for 10 years hurt his acting. So he was kind of nervous to take in this role.
You know what? And I can see where he was worried about that because after he finished with Marvel, he did Dr. Dolittle.
And he said that was one of his best, most important works. I also said that in the interview.
Oof.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't even watched it.
How the tables turned.
Fucking vegan man. Lack of iron man.
No,
he does look pretty rough, by the way. You need to eat some fucking
he
meat,
looks
man.
better now. No, like in recent interviews and everything, like he looks a lot better.
Okay. I don't know what you were going through.
I think it was
Iron deficiency man.
I think what it was is that it was like photos of him on this movie. I think that's
I don't know, he looked red like in those movies. And he didn't look red in the movie. He looked red in these pictures. I'll have them up on the video.
Yeah. I don't know, but what I do like though is like to get back on the movie. 'Cause I know like I kind of like took a turn, but what I like about this movie because like in the interviews, like Matt Damon said whenever he was reading the script, it was written differently than any other script that he's read. Because instead of Christopher Nolan writing Oppenheimer went to the window, he wrote I went to the window and I looked out. Like it was all in first person perspective of Oppenheimer, and he just flipped around because he called and was like, "This movie's on your back," and Christopher Nolan said that like he doesn't write a role for any like whenever he's writing he doesn't have an actor in mind because then you start writing for that actor, but he just writes just to write and but what he says like once he finished it and everything I think I'm paraphrasing and all that other stuff but he called Killian up and was like I need you, this is all you, and like Matt Damon and all them were talking about like it was fun to do because like even his character, I loved Matt Damon's character. Like he killed it in this.
Yeah.
And he said that like he was like he did not care to be liked. He said if somebody asked him why do you think people like you? He said his character would be like, what I don't understand the question. What are you doing? Like he said that was the lowest thing on his list was to be worried to be liked.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we need to get this done, and this is how we need to get this done, and we need to keep people in check. But I thought it was the saddest thing is just how, because I know you're going to get into it too, is how they screwed him over at the end of it. Like once the bomb was over with, and he was talking, Oppenheimer was talking to. What's his name? Colonel
Strauss.
No, not Strauss. Matt Damon's character.
Can't think of his name.
Can't think of his name. But so Murphy was talking to Matt Damon, and was like, "Yeah, so you're gonna keep in touch." And he's like, "Oh no." He asked, "He's like, am I coming to Washington with you?" And he went, "For what?" And it was at that point in time that you knew. Like they're done with you.
It was alluded to by multiple scientists that were hesitant in the movie to work on it. They were like, they need us. And he's like, until they don't.
Yeah.
And then they're going to burn you.
Yep.
But that's politics, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I, like I said, I like history, physics, all this stuff. I knew he was screwed. I know the story of him, but I didn't realize how bad he was fucked over until I watched this movie. Spoiler alert, by the way, even though we've already said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got fucked over bad. Like, and that's one thing I want to also mention is you realize how bad he got fucked over when like the camera turns and you see that Strauss, or Robert Downey Jr.'s character, is in the room and he's actually the guy behind it. Which leads me back to a pro of this movie, the pacing. The pacing of this movie was great. Like, they cut back and forth between like 3 different timelines, like pre-bombing, way pre-bombing, during the bomb, and like after the bomb. And even though they were going so many different timelines, it was pretty easy to keep up with. It was only kind of confusing in the first 10 minutes, but that's because they were trying to get you to understand where everything's at in timeline. But like once it started going, it Pacing was great. Which also is another thing because it's a 3-hour movie. I wasn't bored. Like I wasn't waiting for it to come get over with. Like I think it ended at the right time. Didn't feel too long. Didn't feel too short. Even though it's 3 hours.
So that's the one thing. Like, not to cut you off. The only time that I started checking my watch is whenever I felt like I had to get up to go pee, and that was 2 hours into it, and then I held it for another hour. That's how good this movie is. Like I was like, because most movies, if I got to get up and go pee, I'm like, I'll sit here for a couple more minutes. No. And I'm gone. You know what I mean? And I'll come back and catch up. I don't care. Like, I'll catch the cliff notes on YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
This one, I didn't want to miss anything of. Like, this was, like, very engaging. Like I said, like, the sound design. Like, this is more of, like, your wheelhouse of it. But the cinematography of this entire movie, like what's going through his mind, like when it's raining, how like they pan, like they focus up on like the rain hitting like the pond and the ripples and effects that it has, and then you see it like contemplating in his mind like, oh, like these are tiny atoms, neutrons, and all this other stuff, and expanding and expanding and expanding. This bomb, you know what I mean? And like just the cinematography and the meaning, some of the meaning behind it of like how they did it was amazing. This is the best movie that's been made in like probably like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Like honestly, probably 2 or 3 years. Like this might, that's what I told you last night. This might match up with the Lord of the Rings nominations for the Oscars.
I'd say this is either my number 1 or number 2 Christopher Nolan film now. And that's a hard thing to top because he makes really good movies.
Yeah.
My favorite one by him is Interstellar. Fucking love that movie. I don't know. I just fucking love that movie. And this one's, it's right there with it.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful movie too. Fucking long as well.
You know the bad thing about it is like the only Christopher Nolan movies that I've ever really watched was Memento.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I haven't watched it in a very, very long time. Memento, the Dark Knight trilogy, and Oppenheimer.
You haven't watched Inception?
I haven't watched Inception.
You watched Interstellar?
I haven't watched Interstellar.
You haven't watched Tenet?
I haven't watched Tenet.
Tenet's a good movie.
I heard all of them were good. I heard out of all of his movies, there's one that nobody really talks about. It's one of his first movies, actually, that was kind of you know? Memento, everybody was like, yeah, that's a good movie. Dark Knight trilogy, obviously, great movie. But they say, like, out of like all of his new movies, Tenet's the weakest.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still good.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like a sci-fi James Bond movie.
Okay.
So there's one part of this movie we have to talk about. When I saw this in the news, I sent it to you.
Yep.
And it was encompassed by "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" meme. I'll play that right now so you'll understand.
If we were to bring an incredibly hot but skeptical female lab partner into the mix, and then that way, whenever Dolph's not out busting heads because he smelled crime, he's back at the lab performing outrageous sexual experiments on her supple young body.
So it was claimed that him and Florence Pugh have full-on nudity scenes, like all nudity, and I was kind of like, whew, it's gonna be a little dicey, right? Gonna see some dong. You know,
Thought I was looking forward to this movie before.
Also, to quote "Always Sunny in Philadelphia," you know, does he? How does it go? Does he hang dong?
Best goddamn movie I've ever seen in my life. Oh, dude hangs dong.
Or something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it in there. Also, to quote Sunny in Philadelphia. So I was a little looking, like, waiting for those scenes. You see Florence Pugh nude too, but you only see her like chest up. But like, the reason I'm bringing this up is because he had a full nude scene too.
Right.
You didn't see. I didn't see anything because he has his legs crossed. Jacob says he did see something. Would you like to explain?
So there's a sex scene where, and it might have been shadows. You know, I don't know. All I know is that
Fake shadow lady.
it wasn't small. No, I don't know. Like it was. There was one sex scene in there where I won't go into detail of what it was, But I mean, it looked like you saw something, but it could have been a shadow. But it wasn't a small shadow. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Instantly pushed the movie from a 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10.
I mean, I hadn't turned that bitch up to 11 inches. No, that was a great little part of the movie. Not Cillian Murphy. Look at that boy.
It's not you no more.
Nah. Demonetized.
Man.
No, but no, speaking of like great parts in the movie, what was a couple of things about this movie that you liked? Like, just like a couple of like your favorite things that you could point out and be like, oh, I would go watch it, not because of just cinematography or the sound design or the acting, but like something that you can like pinpoint in it that you would be like, this is one reason to go watch it.
Yeah, if I haven't seen it and I was trying to convince
Yeah.
somebody, I definitely would say watching The Bomb was cool. Just mainly because I know we've already stated it, but it was practical. It wasn't CGI. That was really cool. And the two would be, because most people haven't read The American Prometheus, most people don't know about his story or whatever, would just be the twist. Yeah. Like how, and we've already spoiled it if you're watching, but like the twist of like how people can turn on it, like how they turned on him, and the how far they would go. It's worth going to see.
It's a quick turnaround too. Like, it's a fast turnaround. That
What about you?
see, and those two were kind of like one of mine. Like, I was like, okay, cool, he took the bomb. I was like, cool, I'll talk about Strauss. And then you're like, oh yeah, and I was like, shit. No, as far as like a couple of parts that I can actually like pick out, there's one scene between Casey Affleck and Cillian Murphy where it's cutting back and forth between Matt Damon and Cillian Murphy on a train, and they're talking about the meeting that he had with Casey Affleck's character and Posh and Cillian Murphy. And it's pretty much Cillian Murphy kind of somewhat alluding to there being a mole inside the town that they're doing. And Posh is described as somebody from, what is it, German descent?
Orthodox Russian.
Yeah, Orthodox Russian. And has killed communists with his bare hands.
Based.
And just the acting in that scene alone between Casey Affleck and Cillian Murphy, of Casey Affleck's character just staring into his soul and being like, and who's this person? And what happened?
Dude.
And just interrogating him to the point to where you could see almost Cillian Murphy like really felt intimidated to where you could almost see him sweating in that scene.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that scene up. I wanted to talk about that scene because like it was, I guess the best way I can describe it would be like, to comparison, would be like Inglourious Bastards, the opening scene with the Jew hunter. I can't.
Yeah, Jew Bear?
Yeah.
Or the Bear Jew?
No, the hunter, the same guy from.
Yeah.
Picture. It doesn't matter. I have a picture.
Yeah, that guy.
Like how, like he's nice. He's talking to you nicely, but like.
Deep
I'm
down.
gonna fucking kill you.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it's horrifying because it's so tense. And that's how I felt with Casey Affleck's character. He's just staring at him, and like he's trying to come off. He's talking soft, like, "Hell, why would you think that?" But in his mind, he's like, "I'll fucking kidnap you all, take you out into a desert, and kill you."
Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Torture you and then kill you.
Like, that's why, like, Casey Affleck's an underrated actor. I don't care what anybody says. Like, the man deserves to be in more things.
More than his brother.
More. Ben Affleck's a pretty good actor as well. But yeah, no, Casey Affleck, he like, because I haven't really watched a lot of his stuff. But like, there's what is it, City by the Sea or something like that he did. Was a very emotional movie that he was in, and it's a great movie. But it's not called City by the Sea. It's called something else. We'll put that up too. But yeah, no, like you said, like he's soft spoken, and like you see it in his eyes, and he's like, yeah, you know, like trying to like he's coming off like kind of friendly, but you could see it in his eyes that like if Oppenheimer said one thing wrong, Oppenheimer wasn't leaving that room.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things I like because it cuts between them talking and Matt Damon and him talking, and Matt Damon's character is like, you talk to him in person?
Which is actually important you brought that up because I think he was going to go after him,
Yeah.
but Matt Damon's character reassigned him.
He did.
To protect him.
Yeah, because Matt, he was like, he was talking to Matt. Matt Damon's character was like, "Do you know who it is?" And he was like, "I think I do." And he was like, "Well, tell me." He was like, "You have to order me to tell you." And he was like, "I'm not going to order you to tell me who it is. Like, tell me on your free will, like who it is." And because this guy will murder you, pretty much. He was like, he will kill you and have no remorse for it at all. And yeah, like the next scene, like where they're talking, like they're back on base and everything, and you hear that Posh has been reassigned somewhere in Europe, and Cillian Murphy's character Oppenheimer just goes, you know, he get thanks, you know what I mean, like, and there's those scenes right there, but there's also another one. Oh, what's another scene that's a great, like, there's one where they're recruiting, one that stands out is that when they're recruiting all the scientists and everything, and there's this one scientist who's like, well, I have to leave my family, da-da-da-da-da, and they're like in the hallway, and you can visibly see Matt Damon's character is getting more and more irritated to the point where he just lets out on this dude. And then the camera doesn't, like what usually happens in films like the, you know what I mean? Like it cuts, like you see the two actors who are having the moment have their moment. But it doesn't, like in this, they don't do that. It clearly focuses on Oppenheimer because this is his story. And Matt Damon's character walks away, but he's not even in frame really. Like the camera's just slowly zooming in on Oppenheimer, and then you see his face just kind of have like a little grin to it, but like and also like realization of like this is more serious than what, you know what I mean? Like he already knew like this was very serious, and yes, he was doing it for, you know, because he was very patriotic. But he was a scientist first. So, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you could see the wheel starting to spin in his head. Like, he was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, like, we're actually doing this. You know what I mean? Which I thought was really cool. And, yeah, no, like, Josh Hartnett, his character, whenever they were talking about, the Communist Party and all that other stuff, and he was inviting some other people to come in and talk to, and then him and Oppenheimer were talking. He was like, "You can't be in here."
Yeah, they asked him like, "Hey, what are you working on?" And they just ignored him. He's like,
Yep.
"Okay." Yeah, that's one thing I would say. As smart as he was very naive when it came to that stuff. Like, I get what he was coming from. Like, he's like, I'm a human first, scientist first, humanitarian, all that. But like, it's politics. Especially dealing with communism and shit like that. Like, hey, they're going to do anything they can to win. So he was very naive when it came to that.
Yeah.
So,
What would you rate this movie out of?
I'd give this a solid 9.5 out of 10.
9.5?
It's hard to give movies 10 out of 10.
It is hard to give movies 10 out of 10. However, I didn't really see any flaws in this movie.
I really can't either.
You know what I mean? Like just think real hard. What flaws did you see in this movie? Like acting, lighting, whatever. Continuity wise, what flaws did you see? Besides the joke kangaroo court. I love how they added that in there.
Fuck, I guess you're right.
Huh?
We'll give it a 9.9 out of 10.
9.9. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to give it a 10 out of 10. This is one of my, and I'm not a big,
Nerd.
like, no, I am. But, like, I'm not big into history buff period piece movies.
Yeah.
I'm not. There are a couple of them that I like war movies. I kind of like some of those. But this one right here, yeah. No, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, if people go, oh, what's your favorite movie? It's Oppenheimer right now. You know what I mean? Because it's that movie that takes place over every other movie. Because every other movie that you say is your favorite movie has stuff that people can pick apart in it. You know what I mean? I cannot pick apart this movie. There's nothing in this movie that I did not like at all. So for me, it's a 10 out of 10. Would recommend. But if you go watch it in IMAX. Just go watch it in IMAX.
Or the way God intended. And I'm going to put a meme up the other day because someone had like a little portable DVD players this big. Oh, really? They were like, just watching Oppenheimer just as God intended. Anyway, guys, I think that wraps it up for me. Like Jacob said, go see the damn movie. Go watch the movie.
Go watch it. Also, if you like this kind of content where we review movies like this, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Notify yourself to keep up to date with everything that we're talking about. Also, go watch our last video that Jordan did on Oppenheimer and let us know what you thought about that as well. And catch you next time.